was almost dropping it in the hallway.
Oh, there were
I
several
remember.
times we almost
Exactly.
broke that thing.
And then we came in on Monday, and I was in my office, and Randy came in finger wagging.
What did
And
you
I
two
had
assholes do?
no, he didn't even say that. He said, mm-mm-mm. And I thought, what are you talking about, playing innocent? Because I didn't think anybody had discovered us. And he said, really? You know. And I thought, how the hell did he find out?
And he said 3 words to me. Get back.
Yeah. and you did.
And we did.
Well, no, I chickened out.
Oh,
actually,
you did chicken
yes,
out.
I did. You put it in a blanket and then snuck it inside, and I think you didn't even screw it on the wall. You just left outside.
No, because they called the cops. They were investigating it as a crime, and you have just. This is not going in.
No,
edit that shit out.
No, I think that the statutes of
Yeah,
limitation are
statute of
such that I think
limitations.
we're cool with it. But if Harvey wants to know who stole the mirror, toi et moi.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I don't know how that got around so quickly. We didn't brag about it.
What's your?
I heard about it. I just shook my head. I went, son of a bitch. And
Oh God!
because the
Smoke and mirrors, indeed.
to expand on the story, when when we went on the air, I remember that Harvey Glatt and some of his fellows came up to the radio station to look around and see what we had done, and highly complimentary of what we were doing, and I guess trying to figure out how they were going to
How he was going to make money off this
the next
idea.
thing we knew, there was an application from Harvey Glatt and et al. To put a new radio station in Ottawa, and it seemed to be patterned somewhat on our programming. And we went to their public hearing for a license and registered our objection in person.
I believe it's called an intervention.
Yeah, an intervention, and but they did get the broadcasting license.
Did we have Dormer fall on his knees?
They did get the license, and in spite of everything, I remember thinking, well, a place where people from Radio Carleton can go and pursue their radio careers commercially, because it was becoming more and more clear that there could be trouble for us, because Steve, trying to remember his last name now, the CRTC sent a delegation to up to Radio Carleton to look the place over and see what we were doing. And at that time, I remember that they reiterated their belief that our commercial license was limited and
we were one toke over the line.
And restrictive.
Yeah.
And that was, I think that was in 76.
No, I want to talk about that. I want to talk about the
Cue
creativeness.
these storm clouds on the horizon.
Yes, exactly. We're about to enter 6 crises. I want to. Yes. I want to talk about the creativeness of our commercial. I again reiterate that I don't think we were thumbing our noses up at the commission.
No.
I thought we were walking a very fine line. And Jeff Green was the ad production manager at the time. And he did a marvelous job. The sonic background, not the oral background, the sonic background was due to the fact that he had a great and extensive collection of Eno and Fripp albums.
And Tangerine Dream.
Exactly.
Genesis.
Yeah, exactly. But I remember some production wag. It wasn't me that it wasn't I that had taken this sample out to the client, but the salesperson had come back and said, no, the client really doesn't like this commercial that you've done. It was all full of poetry and airiness and so on and so forth, a la CKCU FM, and he finds it too artsy. And the production guy said, well, if he doesn't like artsy, why is he named his Café Le Pigeon Bleu?
Oh, God.
And I remember we sold so much going into, I think, our second season at Christmas time, with the boards that I had put up on either side of the office were just littered with commercials, and we had basically sold out. And we were so proud of ourselves and thought, wow, this is really a viable commercial.
This is working.
Exactly.
In spite of Chris Chadsey.
you had to mention the nemesis.
Had to open that door.
Exactly. And although even some advertisers, for instance, Jim at Record Runner, would be paying us not in money but in records. So at least, but at least we filled in some holes in our record, because quite frankly, you talk about the music, we were right at the very beginning when the record companies started to recognize, maybe we should kick some of this free product over to these guys, and they'll play it, And also there was a limited access. Maybe Polygram was more advanced than Warner Brothers and so on, but there's very limited access to a lot of the British material that, for instance, someone like Rob Stewart would be buying on an import basis.
Yes. Yeah.
So we really had to fill some of the holes, because that's where we were heading. We didn't care about, God damn it, sorry, Randy, but rumors. We actually took rumors out of the studio at one point. It was overplayed, along with
we used it as an ashtray.
Along with Hotel California. It was like,
good
you
Lord.
do not play that for the.
All right,
fist,
let's get back to the 6
Okay.
crises. I don't remember 6 of them. It was just a
but-
never-ending
but
crisis
now-
for a while.
Well, now, what's interesting about this overly produced commercial policy, we could say, is that we actually found that it wore thin very quickly. If you had an extended Odacom commercial, for instance, and that was slotted for 3 or 4 times an hour, people were going crazy. I think it really told us about how there's not really an evergreen value to, no matter how creative you are, repetition will kill that.
Yeah, frequency.
Yeah, exactly. And people are like, I can't listen to this. Hello, come in. Knock, knock. Yes, Starship. Whatever the
One
case may be.
small step for man.
This is Arnold Palmetto.
And of course, the attention span these days is just
What?
beyond. Exactly. So I was on the way down here from Toronto. I was reading about some of the coverage and some of the trials and tribulations that we went through, and I didn't remember all of them. And by the time I had finished reading some of the reports, I had a headache. I said, how the hell did this station ever exist? How did it survive? And quite clearly, it was a function of love of the station. It was our youth and naivety. But, and you'll be happy with this reference, Nixon wrote a book called 6 Crises, and I'll name our 6 crises right at the moment. I would say radio news, 1, license denial, 2, a university report, 3, referendum, 4, cutting off of our funds, 5, and Shea FM as a sort of a 6th afterthought. So why don't we tackle those, starting with radio news. Randy, over to you.
Oh, and
A quick
Scanlon,
background. While Randy thinks about this, a quick background. So radio news came out of the School of Journalism, led by Joe Scanlon,
Yes.
Professor Joe Scanlon, and they were supposed to be. I forget how many newscasts a day they were doing, but it was supposed to be local content. Was it 3 newscasts a day? It wasn't a lot.
Was it noon and 3 and 5 or something like that?
6, I think.
Yeah,
6, okay.
and they had been doing this before we went FM. So we got great stories on toilet paper shortages in the Arts Tower and and such and whatnot. Randy, I just had to give the BG.
No, that's okay. It was a bone of contention when we were on carrier current
Yes.
and when we were preparing for FM. Joe was very loyal to his students and loyal to the School of Journalism, and he had his own thinking about it, and that was that we should take whatever they produced. And we had a different take on it. That is that we wanted the news programming to fit into the flow of our programming, and therefore we wanted it to be properly produced and broadcast. And he wasn't one to back down.
That makes 2.
And he caused it became quite a cause celeb.
Yes.
And I remember going down to Roosters, and I believe we broadcast it live, where I had a discussion with journalism students about why we had made the demands that we had made of radio news, and I was not, I knew we were in the right. I knew that we.
I absolutely agree with you. I think it was a very ballsy move. I think it was a function basically of this is an outside source that sort of intrudes itself, and acceptably so under certain conditions, into our broadcast hours. And it has to match the quality of what we're broadcasting, and it did not. And
Well, it wasn't just about quality. We also had issues about content
Yep.
because they were fine doing the campus stories while we were just on campus. But we had now a whole new community we were supposed to be reflecting, and the content never reflected that before we took them off the air.
Well, I think if it had been professionally done, I think we
might have been better.
It might have passed.
I'm not-
But it was a combination of both
It was.
wrong content and not really well done.
Not relevant
Yeah.
content, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The content thing, the content argument I could handle, but the lack of
right.
quality
Oh, it was
Exactly.
was
brutal.
just brutal, and it had to be arrested.
And yet they were part and parcel of our promise of performance.
They were.
Yes, it was in our license conditions.
And so it was absolutely a ballsy move on the part of us to say, no, red line, you can't step over this. We are not going to accept inferior product. And in actual fact, I think, when they came back, when it went through all the brouhaha, and it came back on air, they were much improved.
They were.
Yeah.
He wouldn't admit it, and I didn't expect him to.
Right.
But Joe, I
think he knew.
Scanlon respected people who stood up.
Oh, absolutely.
But did they not try to sabotage the station because of us
Yes.
cutting it off?
Yes. Oh,
well,
yeah,
they
no,
did.
no.
Oh no, they went to CUSA, they went to the university,
They went
and
to the Senate. They went. I don't know if he
they
went
went
to the
everywhere,
CRTC.
and that's why.
Except on air.
Yeah, and except on air, and that's why I went down, and we had an open mic discussion on what had happened and why we did what we did and what the justification was, and I believe after that things started to settle down. So, it was
Well, once exposed, once the arguments were
once
exposed.
they heard, once the students
Exactly.
heard everything. I think that
the fourth year students, there was a small group of them. There were a couple that I can think of who went, they've got a point.
it was good because when the referendum, when we had the referendum, because CUSA was getting upset too.
Well, we'll actually get to that. But then,
Which one did you want to do now?
well, the next one is what I would consider sort of our October crisis. And it wasn't really in October, it was our December crisis, which completely reset the table, which was the license denial. And that was a stunning setback
Is
for
this
us.
December 77?
This is December 77.
Okay.
It was just after Christmas, so it didn't ruin our Christmas, but it certainly ruined our New Year's. And I remember I say October crisis because I think now we sort of look upon that as an overreaction on the part of the government, certainly denying our license renewal. We thought, oh, heavy boots on our neck, but that's incredible. And it was sort of the beginning of our loss of innocence. We realized, yeah, we're not in we're not in Kansas anymore.
Yep.
We've got flying monkeys at us, or winged monkeys attacking us.
Jeez, the drugs were good, weren't
and wicked witches everywhere, and
No,
pitchforks and people challenging us. And I remember distinctly being in Studio A, you coming in and sort of laughing maniacally, which always got my attention. It was like, oh, what's this about? And you said, guess what? And I said, what? And he said, that commission has denied our license renewal. And I thought, well, that's going to change things.
Yeah. Yeah.
When we went to the public hearing to renew
Which is
our license
September, I think,
in
77.
77.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't say the denial came as a complete surprise, although it was still very depressing. But that public hearing, I can remember some of the questions coming from CRTC members, like,